Hey there, all you beautiful souls. I hope your day has been absolutely fantastic. It's a pleasure to have you back for yet another exciting episode of What If Naruto Was the Descendant of Scorpion. Don't forget to pay a visit to the author of this captivating fanfiction and show them some love. You'll find the link waiting for you down in the description. Uzumaki Naruto sacrificed his life to protect a precious person, but instead of going to the afterlife, Naruto finds himself face to face with the remains of a soul that was locked away deep within his own soul. A soul filled with fury and vengeance of a family and clan that was taken from him. How will this chance meeting change Naruto, and will it be for better? If this what if is sparking your curiosity, drop a comment down below and share your thoughts. And while you're at it, don't miss out on exploring the plethora of other intriguing what ifs available on this very channel. Alright, let's not keep you waiting any longer, let's dive right into this thought-provoking video. Field of Flowers. Pav. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto didn't know where he was. The last thing he remembered when he closed his eyes was Haku's beautiful face, and now he was standing in a field of flowers. The petals from the flowers floated in the gentle breeze around him, which caused him to close his eyes to enjoy the sweet smell of the flowers that were carried in the gentle breeze that overcame him, until he opened his eyes and saw a teenage girl standing a few feet away, her back turned to him. Her long black hair flowed against the breeze, revealing her pale skin, and her tattered rose-pink kimono with white flower decils, and a red obi sash around her waist flowed against the breeze as well. Naruto noticed that the bottom of the kimono was torn off at the knees, and the top of the kimono hung loose around her shoulders. Naruto also noticed that her feet were bare and caked with mud and dirt, and on her left hand, she was wearing some sort of golden trinket. "Spectre, come," the female said, her voice gentle, but with a tone of sadness within it. Naruto felt himself walking towards the female until he stood to her left, and that's when he saw it. It was the village of Hisako, but all the villagers looked so happy, compared to how they looked before. "This was once my home," the girl started to say. "It was my world, I lived in peace here, but then they came. They plundered and murdered my family, all cut down. I fought them, tore them asunder, but I died in the end." Despite being next to her, Naruto was unable to see her face at all, but he could hear the pain in her voice. "I have protected this village from those that wished to harm it and its inhabitants for centuries, but now more have come, and they have stolen from the grave of my family." "But why?" Naruto asked her. The female lowered her head, and through her bangs, Naruto could see flickers of green energy within her deep and sunken eyes. Suddenly, the field of flowers suddenly became a field of flames, and Naruto soon found himself standing across from the female, but now her skin was a sickly gray, and she was hunched over, a faint aura of darkness around her that resembled ashes and embers, similar to his own, and her body was slightly jittering, as if she was struggling to remain in and out of this plane. "They are destroying my home, they are killing these people I have fought to protect and have taken my most precious possession. Find my possession, Hisashi Hanzo. Find it and bring it to my shrine so I can kill them all," the apparition said, her body jittering rapidly before she took a step, and suddenly, she was before Naruto, which caused him to instantly step back in alarm. "Bring me my possession to save them, Uzumaki Naruto," she shouted, her mouth opening wide, revealing the rows of her sharp teeth. Village of Hisako. Pav. Uzumaki Naruto. With a gasp, Naruto woke up, his body soaked with sweat, his breaths coming out in quick pants. Naruto looked around and saw that Haku was sound asleep, seemingly unaware of the intense nightmare that had just taken place. That dream, who was that apparition? Naruto asked himself before he shook his head and wiped the sweat off of his face, but as he laid back down with Haku, he heard it. Indelible Hisako, indelible grudge. Slaughter, massacre of tragedy. Indelible Hisako, our guardian. Naruto's eyes widened as he listened to the faint song that was playing in his ear. Bloody, bloody rage. Weep, weep, our guardian. Bloody, bloody rage. Indelible Hisako, indelible grudge. It was singing about Hisako, but it wasn't about the village. "I have protected this village from those that wished to harm it, and its inhabitants for centuries," the female voice echoed in his mind as Naruto sat there in the bed, the gears turning in his head. That had to be the case. Whatever was happening with this village, it was causing unrest with that apparition. But what? Naruto let out a sigh. He just had so many questions about what was going on in this village. From the Oto shinobi he had killed to the intense nightmare in the form of that female that saw him as both Hisashi Hanzo and Uzumaki Naruto. Perhaps that girl he and Haku met earlier would be able to tell him something about this village, and maybe even the girl herself. Naruto turned to Haku and placed a small kiss on her forehead, before he slid out from beneath her, silently slipped on his shinobi sandals, and walked out of the room. Naruto walked down the hall of the inn and noticed that Fu was still at her desk, but instead of dozing off like she had before when he first saw her, she was focused on a few pieces of paper in front of her. What was she doing? Despite all of his changes, Naruto couldn't fight the curiosity that was burning in him, and with a small chuckle, he walked to the desk and asked, "Fu-san, got a minute?" Fu blinked rapidly before she smiled at Naruto and replied, I wasn't expecting you to need me so soon, Naruto-san. How can I help you? Need ice? Room service, flowers for the pretty lady. I shouldn't assume that you need all of that stuff. You know what they say about assuming, makes an ass out of you and me. Naruto noticed Fu putting the papers into her desk quickly as she talked before she laughed a bit and said, there I go being a chatterbox again, sorry about that. Naruto chuckled and shook his head at the girl. It's no problem at all, Naruto responded with a dismissive wave of his hand. But tell me something, these Oto shinobi that's in this village, do you know anything about them? Fu shook her head and sighed. Not at all, unfortunately, Fu answered. They just appeared out of nowhere and went straight to the mayor's place. Next thing we know, we're captive under them. So they just appeared out of nowhere? Naruto asked with a confused look on his face. Fu nodded, leaned in her chair, and answered, yeah. It was sudden and none of us saw it coming, but I've investigated them. Why do you ask? Well, I had to kill a few earlier that were abusing some of the villagers, and decided that I would help them clear these trash out, but I need to know more about them, Naruto answered, not wanting to tell her about the note just yet. So you know nothing about them? Fu nodded, a serious look on her face. I know of them due to my travels around the shinobi world. I know that they are a cruel and evil bunch that has either wiped out small villages or forced them to swear allegiance to them. Naruto couldn't help but let a scowl form on his face after Fu's words. I knew someone like that. He would twist your soul around until you bowed to him. I hate people that try to force things on others. As do I, Fu said softly, her eyes telling a story that Naruto could not decipher just yet. I see, then we have something in common, Naruto said with a smile on his face, which Fu returned with her own smile. I guess we do, she responded. You should be resting. It's like 3 in the morning. You should be as well, Naruto noted with a chuckle as he leaned forward on the desk and added, besides, I can't really sleep. Nightmares? Fu asked him, which Naruto nodded in response. Something like that, Naruto responded before he remembered why he came here in the first place. Tell me something, Naruto started. How did this village get its name? Fu looked at him for a moment, and then said with a dejected tone, oh crap, I can't remember that at all. Naruto leaned away and crossed his arms as he said, I see. Fu's eyebrows narrowed in thought for a moment before a look of realization appeared on her face. Wait. I'll be right back. Fu suddenly shouted before she got out of her chair, and quickly darted to the door behind her, where she quickly opened it and went inside. After a few minutes of waiting, Naruto watched as Fu came out with a book and placed it on the desk, and said, when I first came here, before those damn Oto shinobi, the owner of this hotel gave it to me to learn. How come? Naruto curiously asked. Well, I have to learn the history of this village as a part of my test to become a permanent resident here, Fu explained with a smile on her face. You want to become a permanent resident of this village? Naruto asked, a little surprised by this fact. Fu nodded and said, I've been to a lot of places, and this place has been the only village that has ever welcomed me so warmly. They don't care that I look different to them or about a few other things about me, it feels like home. Why wouldn't I want to stay? Naruto nodded in understanding. He had felt the same way about Wave when he was there, it was more of a home to him than Konoha ever was. Konoha. This was the first time the name of his village had popped into his head since his time in Wave. He promised Kakashi that he would return to Konoha, but it felt like such a lifetime ago, that Naruto had been there and yet. He found himself missing Wave far more than he missed Konoha, and when he thought of home, he thought of Wave more than Konoha. Did he truly want to return? Naruto was taken out of his thoughts when Fu said, well, let's crack this bad boy open, so we could learn some stuff. Naruto nodded and walked over to Fu's side as she opened a very large book. The teal-haired girl flipped through a few pages before she exclaimed, aha. What? Naruto asked. Here it is, the history of Hisako village. This village is apparently centuries old, and was founded by Hisako, who found it and rehabilitated it to be livable. During her rehabilitation, however, Hisako found the destroyed shrine with the words Hisako, along with a scroll that was hanging from an Ajinata on it, that told the tale of Hisako the Guardian. Hisako the Guardian, Naruto repeated while he crossed his arms with narrowed eyes. Yeah, it has the tale that was in the scroll in here, Fu explained as she narrowed her eyes at the book. Read it, all of it, Naruto commanded with an urgent tone in his voice. Fu looked at Naruto for a moment before she looked down at the book and began to read. Decades ago, there was a female teenage girl. She was the eldest daughter of a Ronin, a samurai without a leader. For her father's shogun had been assassinated by a rival, and the girl's father had returned to the village of his birth to start a family and become a farmer, Fu read. Being descended from a famous Anabujaisha, a female samurai, the girl's father felt that it was his duty to train his eldest daughter in the arts of war. The times were dangerous with many warring clans, renegade shoguns, and bandits on the roads, and every member of the village needed to be capable of bearing arms in case of invasion. Around his neck, he always wore a strip of red cloth torn from his late shogun's battle banner in remembrance of him. The girl became adept with sword and bow, but her weapon of choice was the naginata, a long pole with a blade on one end. It was the same weapon that her ancestor had used, and it was good for keeping the enemy at bay, as well as unseating horsemen. Her father told her that she would inherit the Naginata upon his death, but he gave her a ninja's weapon called the Nikoti, the cat's claw. Nikoti, Naruto repeated to himself. Fu nodded and said, "It's a gold blade that fits over a finger and could be laced with poison." Apparently, the girl was to use this if any man ever tried to abduct her. Naruto's mind flashed back to the female from his nightmare, and he remembered seeing a golden trinket on her hand. Was this the Nikoti? When the girl was in training, she worked diligently in the field side by side with the men and women of the village, Fu continued. But every action she performed was done with the intention of practicing her military planting of a rice shoot, was the same as the downward motion of a katana sword thrust. The pulling of a weed mimicked a defensive Naginata maneuver. One day a traveling theatrical group came to the village and performed a puppet show called The Story of the Ghost Wife, the tale of a woman who died and then came back from the dead, only to murder her husband's new bride, by ripping off her head. The ghost wife's puppet scared the girl with its pale skin and long wild black hair. For years afterward, she had nightmares about it. Ironic, Naruto thought to himself, but tuned in when Fu continued on. When she was about to turn 19, a young aristocrat passed by the village on horseback, for red. He saw the girl fetching water from the river and instantly wanted her, teasing her about her mud-caked feet. He tossed a beaded prayer bracelet on the ground and mockingly asked her to marry him, but the girl laughed in his face. She wanted to be a samurai, not somebody's housekeeper. Especially not for a prissy-looking oaf like him. The wealthy young man, the son of a vicious renegade shogun, became angry and drew his sword, and so the girl knocked him off his horse with her bucket and beat him soundly. The humiliated man jumped on his mount and rode away from the village in shame, and the girl continued her training with renewed vigor. She wore the prayer bead bracelet to remind herself to never marry a fool. The week after her 19th birthday, when all of the fruit tree blossoms had fallen and covered the ground like a white carpet, she was training in this spot when she caught her kimono on a sharp piece of bamboo. She ripped off the entire bottom part of the kimono, so that she wouldn't trip on it, and continued until twilight, when she became aware that the air was thick with smoke. She sprinted out of the forest and across the fields toward the village. It was on fire. And there were armed horsemen everywhere. Naruto was getting a bad feeling about where this story was heading. She reached into the folds of her robe and slipped on her poisoned cat's claw, and once she got closer, that the invaders had slain many of the villagers, for red, immediately confirming Naruto's bad feeling. The girl ran toward her house, turned a corner, and came face to face with a sight that made her knees buckle. Her mother, grandmother, and two younger siblings lay dead, piled on top of each other like butchered animals, their clothes slashed and their blood staining the stones of the street. And there was her father's corpse nearby. His head had been cut off, and the red strip of battle banner that he had always worn around his neck lay at her feet. She picked it up with a trembling hand. The girl's heart broke in that instant, and then it turned to a lump of burning coal inside her breast. "Hey, you okay?" Fu asked with concern. Naruto's eyes had narrowed in anger, and his eyes were flashing from blue to fiery red-orange, but he managed to calm himself when he saw Fu's own eyes looking at him in concern and replied, "Yeah, this is just hitting too close to home, that's all." Fu looked at Naruto and said, "I can stop if you W." "Don't," Naruto interrupted. "Keep going, please." Fu obeyed the request as she looked down at the book and read. She grabbed her father's Naginata, pulling it from his dead hands, then charged the horsemen, screaming at them, calling them cowards, and ripping them apart like a force of nature. Positioning herself between the warriors and some buildings where many of the village children were being held, she fought with inhuman endurance, slaying a dozen of the attackers, before succumbing to her own wounds and collapsing on the ground. The last thing that she saw in this world was a young man's face grinning at her, the man whom she had spurned by the river. With her dying effort, she swept her cat's claw across his cheek, and then she died with his screams of anguish echoing in her ears. But the girl had not passed in vain. Her act of bravery against overwhelming odds rallied the surviving villagers to fight back, and they drove the soldiers out of the village, shooting many of them dead with arrows as they fled. Once the fight was over, the remaining survivors of the village cremated the girl with her family, carefully removing the bones from the ashes with chopsticks, and placing them in clay urns, and buried them deep away to keep them protected from outside parties, and while many of them didn't know her name. They called her Hisako, meaning everlasting child, due to her dying when she was 19 years old. Once they were done, they built a shrine for her, to which they regularly made small offerings, burning incense and offering prayers to the brave spirit of the young woman who had saved them from being wiped out. Fu took a breath and read. Saikakagin was touched by this tale of Hisako, and rehabilitated the shrine as well, and left that area of town alone in honor of the fallen guardian of this currently unnamed village. A few days later, this village was attacked by some samurai, and many of those who fought swore that they saw a teenage girl with muddy feet and a torn kimono wielding a naginata with a red ribbon fighting against the invaders. This rallied the villagers to fight, and eventually, they managed to drive off the invaders. Kagem, realizing that the tale was true, then renamed the village Hisako in her honor, to thank her for her sacrifice and for protecting our home, and since this time, whenever this village was in danger, the spirit of Hisako the guardian would appear to protect us all. Hisako will always and forever be welcome as our guardian. Saikakari. When Fu finished, she closed the book and said, "This was last updated 12 years ago by Saikakari, the daughter of Kagem." Shit, that was heavy to read. Naruto agreed with a nod. Hisako, you and I are more alike than I have thought, but will you protect these people? I became a monster in return, Naruto thought with a sullen tone before he shook his head and said, so it was named after this tale, which seems to be true. But if this tale was true, Hisako would have been here to stop Oto. If it is true, I wonder why she hasn't appeared, Fu said curiously. Naruto was unsure for a moment as well until he remembered her words. Find my possession, Hisashi Hanzo. Find it and bring it to my shrine so I can kill them all. Could it be that her possession that was missing was the cause of her not showing up? And if that was the case, she wanted him to find it, but where could he even begin? Wait. Fu, where is this shrine they speak of? Naruto asked her with a court brow. Fu narrowed her eyes and thought for a moment before she said, I don't know, but maybe the elder of the village knows. Perhaps he could help you when he awakens. Can you tell me where he is located? Naruto asked her. Fu smiled and said, his home is located a few houses away from here. When day breaks, I can sneak out and lead you to him. Naruto smiled. Village of Hisako, Mayor's Mansion. Pav. Hakumen no Teiwaya. Man, Jirobo is taking a long-ass time with the food. Teiwaya let out an aggravated sigh as she lay on the nice clean white couch beneath her. I knew we shouldn't have sent that fat ass anywhere. He's probably out chasing some tail on some shit like that, Teiwaya spat with annoyance. Kitamari rolled his eyes at Teiwaya and said, shut up over there. You bitching about him won't bring him back faster. You're the one whining about him not bringing the food. Teiwaya shouted as she rose up from her prone position, anger in her eyes. Enough, Kamimaro said with authority in his voice, causing both Kitamari and Teiwaya to quiet down. We should be more concerned about the mission that Orochimaru-sama sent us on than food. Teiwaya scowled at the white-haired Kyuga, spat on the floor then responded, just because you can survive with Orochimaru-sama's cock in your mouth, doesn't mean we should join you for the messy deep-throat buffet. Kamimaro narrowed his eyes while Kitamari, Yukin, and Seiken snorted in amusement. We need real food, and the fatso hasn't come back yet, and the mayor and his bitch ass can't feed us while he's dead. And we max out all the food in that fat ass's fridge already. And again, we need food to be able to have energy to complete the mission in the first fucking place. The food will come, Kamimaro responded. A food source maybe, Teiwaya muttered with a roll of her eyes. Kamimaro turned around and said, I do not know why Orochimaru-sama is looking at you for the next candidate for the cursed seal, but he obviously has chosen a poor candidate for it. Teiwaya rose up from the couch and walked up to Kamimaro and hissed, listen here cum dumpster, how dare you. Just then, an Oto shinobi came bursting into the living room of the mansion where the Otogakure no shinobi Gon and Shu stayed and said, Kamimaro-sama, there is an emergency in the village. Jirobo-sama was killed. The four shinobi in the room looked at the Oto shinobi in shock. Say that again. Jirobo was killed. You can ask the Oto nin, who nodded. Teiwaya began to laugh hard at this, causing the other shinobi to look at her. Oh wow. The fat ass spit the dust. That is fucking hilarious. So who beat him? Some lady accidentally tossing a donut to him and him choking on it. Teiwaya, enough, Kitamari responded. How did it happen? Well, Jirobo-sama was being cruel to a woman whose child had bumped into him, the shinobi began, which caused Teiwaya to scoff immediately, but she remained silent as the shinobi continued. Jirobo-sama told the shinobi he was with to take the child, when this boy with bright blonde hair and furious-looking orange-red eyes came and cleaved them in half with the Kubikiri Hacho. That got Kamimaro's attention immediately. Everyone knew that the Kubikiri Hacho belonged to Mamachi Zabuza, so whoever this kid was to be wielding that blade was not to be messed with. This kid and some girl that was with him slaughtered the shinobi, and before Jirobo-sama could do anything, the kid stabbed through his stomach, then sliced up his chest, and finally took off his hat and burned it in fire, all with a kunai. The room was quiet as the Otogakure no shinobi Gon and Shu absorbed what had happened to one of their own, but Kamimaro was the first one to snap out of this and said, we need to kill this person immediately. Who knows if he will interfere with Orochimaru-sama's goals, Kitamari, Teiwaya. Teiwaya and the six-armed team looked at Kamimaro. I want you both to take 10 shinobi from the shrine to hunt these people down and kill them, Kamimaro commanded. Seiken, Yukin, and I will go to the shrine to retrieve that Naginata that Orochimaru-sama sent us here for. Gotcha, Kitamari responded, but Teiwaya remained silent. Something felt wrong and Teiwaya didn't know why. Village of Hisako. Pav. Uzumaki Naruto. Bring me my possession to save them, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto opened his eyes at the voice of Hisako echoing in his mind, and felt himself frown a bit. After his talk with Fu, Naruto went to sleep with the plan to save this village. But once again throughout his time sleeping, Hisako had returned to his mind and repeated what she had told him before, and now he was wide awake. Luckily enough, it was now sunrise and he actually felt fully rested. Naruto looked down and stared down at Haku's sleeping form, and felt a gentle smile tug at his lips. She looked so peaceful, so pure, it reminded him of a gentle snowfall in his village during his time as Hisashi Hanzo. Naruto caressed Haku's cheek and whispered, "How can someone as pure as you be with someone as damned as I?" Naruto let a soft sigh escape his lips and withdrew his hand before he slipped out of bed, and made his way to the bathroom to freshen up for this new day of investigation. After stripping away his clothes, Naruto turned on the shower, stepped inside of it, and let the soothing hot water cascade down his body. So far, his search to find himself really was strangely going well. While he was still prone to extreme violence, it seems more that it was triggered when there was injustice being done before him instead of all the time. Was that part of being a good guy? Naruto chuckled and shut his eyes. Him a good guy? It seemed so laughable, and yet, all he had done was commit good deeds with his violent hellfire, but was it enough? Was it enough to balance out all of the dark, cruel things he had done during his time under the leash of Quan Kai? No, Naruto said softly. Nothing could make up for the atrocities I have done as his pawn. But then his mind went back to Haku, as well as Konoha and the others in Wave, and he felt a smile form on his face. He may feel that nothing could make up for what he had done as Scorpion, but at least he made a damn good start. A few minutes later, Naruto walked out of the bathroom and quickly got dressed before he glanced at Haku's sleeping form. He and Fu were supposed to meet with the elder of the village, to find out where to find Hisako's grave to continue the investigation, and as much as he wanted to wake up Haku and get her ready, he didn't want to waste any time, so after he kissed the sleeping Kunoichi's cheek, Naruto left the room after sparing one last look to her, and shut the door softly. Naruto walked down the hallway and met with Fu, who was slipping on her orange bag, and said, "Good morning, Fu-san." Fu gave him a bright smile and greeted, "Good morning, Naruto-san. Are you ready to go?" Naruto nodded, and together, the two quickly walked out of the hotel building. Village of Wave. Pav. Haruno Sakura. What the hell? The Great Uzumaki Festival. Sakura couldn't help but grin as Ino and the rest of her team stared at the village in shock. It may have been a few days since she had been here, but the village had taken such a different turn. Before, Wave was barely standing and everyone seemed so depressed, so defeated. But now, everything looked brighter and all of the villagers seemed happier, but there was another difference. Hanging from the walls of many buildings, orange streamers with tons of orange and navy blue confetti fell all around them, and all around the village, there were villagers laughing, dancing, and singing, all of them wearing an orange and blue headband around their foreheads. What kind of bizarre world did we just step into? Ino asked with a confused tone in her voice. Sakura didn't answer her due to noticing many pictures of her teammate. Some of them had her, Sasuke, and Kakashi in them, while others had Naruto and Haku in them, but many of them had Naruto with various people. The strange part was that there were pictures of him before the bridge incident. She had somehow gotten used to seeing the new Naruto that she was jarred at seeing his old look. Back when our hotness was super cute, inner Sakura claimed, but she didn't yell. She sounded wistful at the sight of the chubby Chitu Uzumaki feeding a small red-haired child with Haku. The great Naruto bridge, what the fuck? Kiba shouted in alarm, only for Sakura to grin when Kurenai's hand smacked the back of his head, which made the Inizuka shriek in surprise. Beside her, she saw Hinata gazing up at the picture of Naruto standing before Zabuza as rain fell from above, and she could see the huge blush on Hinata's face. Sakura couldn't help but admire the look of fierceness on Naruto's face, as he stared down Zabuza, but as Hinata frowned at the sight of Haku, Sakura did as well. We really screwed the pooch not going after him, didn't we? Inner Sakura asked softly, which made Sakura shake her head. No, we didn't screw up, Sakura said vocally to herself before she walked up to Hinata and said, I know, it's hard to tell that he's changed so much. Hinata shook her head and replied, no, I can tell it's him. Even though his face changed, his eyes remained the same, although, something else about how he looks, it seems familiar to me. Sakura watched as Hinata placed her hand on the image of Naruto, and as she traced his jawline, she said, I see Naruto-kun, but at the same time, I see someone else. What do you see? Sakura asked in confusion. Sakura saw how focused Hinata looked as she said, a lost soul molded by hellfire itself. Sakura saw Hinata wince in pain as she clenched her eyes shut and held her hands to the sides of her head. Hinata-san, are you okay? Sakura asked as she placed her hand on Hinata's left forearm. Hinata remained silent for a moment before she answered, I'm okay, I just didn't get a lot of rest. Okay, but what did you mean about Naruto-kun? Sakura asked curiously, but Hinata shook her head and removed her hand from Naruto's image. It is nothing, Hinata replied before she said, just rambling, Sakura-san. I'll be alright. But Sakura could hear the distant tone in Hinata's voice, but she didn't question it. A few seconds later, Shikamaru came from behind the two and said, man, Sakura-san. It's like they made him a deity. I believed you before, but I really believe you now. Yeah, it's really strange. Did the villagers forget that we were here too? Sakura asked with a humorous tone in her voice. She didn't care so much for the glory, and while she felt that the village was getting a little out of hand with the love for Naruto, she felt that Naruto deserved the love and respect the village gave him. Something Konoha didn't. I agree as well, Shino said, which caused Sakura to jump due to him randomly appearing beside her. This place seems to idolize him like we do our cages. It is fascinating to see. Hinata nodded and said, it truly is. Our village despises Naruto-kun to the point of wanting him dead, but it's truly the opposite here. I mean, look at all the pictures of him. I even see that they are starting to build a statue of him. Sakura blinked in surprise. I'm sorry, what? Sakura asked in confusion. Hinata pointed to the middle of the village where Neji, Tenten, and Lee were standing, and where they stood, there was a sign that said, the hero of wave, Uzumaki Naruto, and while there was no statue yet, there was a large stone pillar in the spot where the statue would be. The four Genin walked to Team Guy, and as they walked up, Sakura heard Neji tell Lee and Tenten, how can this be? Naruto was the failure in the class when we were his classmates, how can this be possible? None of this should be possible. His flames of youth were burning out of control, Lee responded with a wide grin on his face. Truly we should all be like Naruto-kun. Tenten chuckled at the excitable Lee and said, still, it's odd to think that Naruto made such a huge impact here. It seems what Hinata-san told us was true after all. Neji remained staring at the spot and softly repeated, how can this be? It was as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing, but Sakura frowned at him. What makes this hard to believe to you, Neji-san? Sakura asked curiously as she looked at him in thought. He was a failure, destiny had deemed him a failure, and yet Neji blinked and rubbed his face before he turned around and stomped away angrily, leaving the rest of Genin to watch him leave. What in the world was that all about? Shikamaru asked as he placed his hands behind his head. Village of Wave. Pav. Hatake Kakashi. Kami Kakashi breathed out in awe. This place had gone full Naruto mania, and they were only gone for a week and a half. Kakashi then chuckled and thought to himself, this place is what Konoha should be for him. Celebrating his achievements instead of trying to hold him down. Kakashi turned to Unko and saw that she was now wearing an orange jacket, which was similar to Naruto's jacket, as well as holding a small doll made in Naruto's image, and some orange-colored cotton candy, and she had a large grin on her face. I got to say, this village may be super strange in throwing their love into a Genin, but fuck, it looks awesome, Unko said to Kakashi, clearly pleased. Amused, Kakashi stated, I see you are enjoying yourself, while he crossed his arms. Unko bobbed her head and said, you kidding me? When you told me all that happened, even I had my grain of salt, but seeing all of this and seeing how happy these folks are, I can see why he opted to stay. Asuma, who decided to butt into the conversation, said, Kakashi, there has to be something we're missing. Truly that story you fed us cannot be true. And why couldn't it? Unko asked with a frown on her face. Look at this village. Look at everyone laughing and singing. Look at all the celebrations. Look at the streamers and colors and all of the pictures of the kid. Gee, don't you think it looks legit? Asuma rolled his eyes and said, they act as if he is the Hokage here. And he is nothing but a mere Genin. Hell, we've all saved villages, and yet we never got this type of ovation. Doesn't this all seem bizarre to any of you? Kakashi opened his mouth to speak when a rather familiar voice said from behind him, if I hadn't farted myself, I would have agreed with you, Sarutobi Asuma. The three quickly turned around to see a stern-looking Momochi Zabuza standing with his arms crossed along with Tsunami beside him with a welcoming smile on her face. Zabuza was currently wearing a gray tank top and black shinobi pants, but his arms, neck, and half of his face were hidden by medical wrap. What was most telling was that Zabuza wasn't wearing his hide as he had been during their bout, and his famous blade was also missing from his person. Kakashi then looked towards Tsunami, and wondered why she was standing beside the fearsome shinobi, looking very comfortable with his presence. Zabuza-san, what are you still doing here? Kakashi asked nonchalantly, both of his hands in his pocket. Heh, this woman here refuses to let me leave until my injuries heal, Zabuza stated while motioning his head to Tsunami, who turned to him, and gave a soft laugh. That's right. You shouldn't even be out of bed, Momochi-kun, but you had to come out here due to sensing Kakashi-san's chakra. Tsunami admonished while she crossed her own arms. Momochi-kun. Kakashi thought to himself, filing this away for later before he said, well, you came out here to see little old me. I'm touched. Zabuza snorted and shot back, well, I was hoping for a rematch with you. Our battle was interrupted before we could see our battle through to the end. Kakashi ignored the looks of astonishment from Unko and Asuma, and replied with a carefree tone, of course. As soon as you heal up, I'll accept that challenge. But in the meantime, you said you fought with Naruto. Zabuza chuckled lowly and nodded. I did. It was a pretty good battle between an injured man and a fully strong Genin brat. The Great Uzumaki Festival is in full swing, and a woman wants to enjoy it. When it's done, bring your group to Tazuna's and I'll tell you what happened. The Great Uzumaki Festival. Asuma said with an exasperated tone in his voice, and he then asked, they even have a festival named after him. Tsunami nodded and chirped. It's a festival celebrating the hero of Wave and the namesake of our bridge, Uzumaki Naruto. It's due to him bringing light back into this village with not only fighting and temporarily dying for it, but among other great things. Ah, no wonder the orange and blue is everywhere, Anko noted before she grinned and said, man, I can't wait to hear the story of the Gaki fighting you, Zabuza-san. Neither can I, Asuma muttered in annoyance. And speaking of Uzumaki, where is he? We are on a mission to bring him back to Konoha. Zabuza grinned at this and answered, you'll have to find out after the festival, Sarutobi. Until then. Zabuza and Tsunami turned away and walked off, with Kakashi noting that Tsunami wrapped both of her arms around Zabuza's left arm, the two walking close together. Kakashi chuckled as he turned to Anko and Asuma and said, well, you heard him. We've been traveling for a while, and our students need to relax anyways. Might as well enjoy ourselves before we hear the story and drag Naruto back in the morning. You're just going to let him go? Asuma asked. Kakashi nodded and said, of course. He's causing no harm. He is Momochi Zabuza, the demon of the hidden mist. Does that not ring a bell to you? Asuma exclaimed, causing a few of the villagers to pause at him before they walked past him to continue the festival. He is a dangerous shinobi, running free in this village. How can you allow him to just leave, especially if he knows where our mission objective is? Asuma continued with a shout. Kakashi and Anko looked at him blankly. Asuma, I think you need a drink to calm your nerves. You're getting too hot under the collar about this, Guy said suddenly beside Anko, causing the latter to shriek in surprise, before she turned her body and smashed her cotton candy in his face. Don't do that, Anko exclaimed as she mushed the candy into Guy's face, hard enough for him to bend backward with his right leg off the ground. Ignoring the incredulous look from Asuma, Kakashi opened his book of Icha Icha Paradise, and waved him off as he walked away, saying, well, if this conversation is over, I'll see you guys later. Kakashi knew he should be taking this mission seriously, but at the same time, he didn't want to drag Naruto back just yet. Enjoy the festival, kiddo, because you'll be torn away from this place soon, Kakashi sullenly thought. Village of Hisako. Pav. Uzumaki Naruto. With a shout, Naruto's enflamed right hand clawed down the face of an Oto shinobi, leaving a claw mark filled with hellfire behind, and seconds later, the shinobi fell to the ground in agony, as his face began to catch on fire, and soon, his body was soon on fire as well, and that fire remained until it was nothing but charred remains. Naruto looked up at the three remaining Oto shinobi, all of whom were staring at him with a mixture of fear and horror, the bodies of their allies all around them, dead or dying. When Naruto and Fu had gotten to where the shrine was located, they had discovered a large digging site with a small red and golden shrine, smack dab in the middle of the dugout crater, where a medium-sized gathering of Oto shinobi, ruthlessly beating the villagers they had forced to dig around the shrine. Naruto didn't take kindly to this act, and immediately sprang into action with the Kubikiri Hacho, slaughtering them all with the blade, until he took them down with his hands, until only 3 remained. I will ask this again, what did you Oto take from the shrine? Naruto asked darkly, his eyes ablaze with an Atharim's flames. One of the Oto shinobi, a black-haired boy with wild bed hair, a beige shirt with the kanji for death written on it, a snake-patterned scarf that was around his neck, and gray-black shinobi pants, stepped forward and said, I ain't no pussy. Just because you killed those other posers doesn't mean you'll get me. Zaku. An Oto kunoichi, with long black hair tied in a loose ponytail, a green tank top, black bracers, camouflage gray-black pants, and a snake-patterned scarf that was around her neck, shouted from behind the rather bold Oto shinobi, which caused Zaku to look at her. The kunoichi was currently sitting on the ground due to kunai sticking out of her left hip and right leg, thrown by Naruto during his assault. He saw what he did to the others. Just back down and tell him what he needs to know. The kunoichi continued with fear in her voice. Zaku shook his head and looked back at her and said, I can see how strong he is, but I will not betray Orochimaru-sama. Zaku then looked at his arms, which hung limply at the sides, bleeding, and added, no matter how much pain I am in. Zaku-kin breathed out. Naruto then watched as the final Oto shinobi, a male with bandages covering everything but his left eye, a large grey poncho with long sleeves, a snake-patterned scarf around his neck, black shinobi pants, and a straw raincoat, stepped forward to stand beside Zaku and said, I am in agreement with him, kin. Orochimaru-sama saved us from certain death, I couldn't forgive myself if I failed him now. Dosukin murmured softly as she continued to sit on the ground behind the two. Naruto shut his eyes and said, how foolish, you two face your death, and you still stand to face me. It's foolish, but admirable all the same. It is truly a shame I must kill you here. Naruto stabbed the large blade into the ground and said, but while I will kill the two of you, I shall fight you with my hands instead of the Kubikiri Hacho. I will grant you two that mercy. Fuck your mercy. Zaku shouted as he dashed forward and aimed a kick at Naruto's head, but Naruto ducked the kick, and then leaped into the air, grabbed Zaku's face, and slammed the Oto shinobi down to the ground. Just as Naruto landed, however, Dosu roared as he ran with his right arm outstretched, his amplifier now visible to Naruto. Naruto scowled and grabbed the arm that was about to strike him, but he then saw Dosu smirk beneath the bandages. It was then that Naruto felt a large amount of pain in his body. So much pain that it caused his body to vibrate slightly. Naruto continued to grip the amplifier on Dosu's right forearm, but without warning, Zaku's foot suddenly slammed into Naruto's stomach, which had him disengage from the hold and leap backward away from the two, but when he landed, he nearly stumbled. Resonating echo drill, it damages the target's inner ear, which can knock them off balance just enough for them to die, Dosu said with a smirk on his face. Naruto felt nauseous as he stood against the two and thought, how interesting, the only warrior I know who can use sound waves as a weapon is Sindel, the deceased queen of Edenia. It is a shame that it won't save him from his fate. Naruto then straightened up and watched as the two dashed forward to him, but this time, Naruto pulled out two kunai and waited for his chance. He would need to focus hard to counter the effects of the resonating echo drill. Naruto waited for the two to come towards him, and the minute they did, Naruto leaped up and kneed Zaku in the jaw, sending the Odo shinobi to the ground, but Dosu quickly appeared in front of the downed shinobi, and thrust his right arm forward to strike Naruto. Naruto dashed to the side and stabbed the amplifier on Dosu's arm with the kunai so hard, that both the kunai and the amplifier exploded upon impact, which also took off Dosu's right arm. Dosu screamed in agony, but Naruto quickly silenced those screams by stabbing the second kunai into the throat of the Odo shinobi. Dosu took a step backward, his screams quickly became gurgles before he fell back to the ground. The sound quickly stopped. Overconfidence is often the death of many shinobi, Naruto said to Dosu's body, which had gone still. Hopefully, you learn this in your next life. Dosu. Zaku screamed in terror before he looked at Naruto with rage in his eyes, and that was when he got up from his spot and dashed towards Naruto while shouting, I'll kill you. Naruto turned his head and pulled out another kunai, and just as Zaku launched himself forward, Naruto leapt as well, and when the two met in the air, Naruto's kunai found itself in the middle of Zaku's face. Naruto landed on the ground on one knee while Zaku landed on his back, as dead as his teammate was a few feet away from him. Naruto rose up from his kneel position and walked towards Kin, who began to crawl backward away from him. As Naruto walked, he yanked the Kubikiri Hacho from the ground and dragged it behind him until he stopped in front of Kin, who looked as if she was going to drop dead in front of him. Well, they all died for their foolishness. I shall give you a chance. Tell me what was taken from this shrine, and I will let you walk away alive, Naruto said, but he then pointed the blade at her and added, if not, I will make your death my example to the rest of the Odo shinobi in this village, your choice. Kin's eyes widened in terror as she stared at the blade and shakily said, I'll tell you everything I know. Just don't kill me please. Very well, Naruto explained before he stabbed the blade into the ground and said, now let's G. Naruto swiftly knocked Kin out with a chop to the neck, and swiftly used her headband to wrap her wrists together, and used the headband of a dead shinobi nearby, and wrapped her ankles together. Naruto looked up and motioned Fu to come join him. Fu skidded down into the large crater before she bounced to Naruto's side, kneeled beside him and asked, how can I help? Naruto looked to the unconscious Kin and said, take her back to the hotel and put her in an empty room, and try to tie her up with something thicker than these. Fu nodded and asked him, and what will you do? Naruto turned his head and said, I was going to investigate the shrine, but now, I'll be dealing with some unwanted guests. Naruto then stood up and turned his head to see an Odo shinobi with 6 arms and another shinobi with flowing red hair. Fu nodded, lifted up Kin's unconscious body, leaped out of the crater, and dashed off. For a moment, Naruto could see that the red-haired was about to leap after Fu, but the 6-armed shinobi motioned for her to stop. Heh, so this is the threat Kamimura was worried about. Just a baby-faced blonde, the shinobi said with a laugh, but the female wasn't laughing. In fact, the red-haired Kunoichi seemed to realize the threat standing before them. And that made Naruto smirk. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.